I love romantic comedies. I love them. And I know it's predictable and it's basic, and I totally look like the kind of person that would say that, but I love them. And at the same time, I'll admit, they're annoying, they're predictable, they're frustrating. Especially because there's always that one part where one character messes up, the other character finds out, and the character that messed up has at least one solid opportunity to communicate, to make reparations, to explain that the timing was weird and I got framed or whatever the circumstance was. But instead, they let the other character walk away, out of the room, out of the state, out of the country. It gets too complicated. And you're sitting there and you're ready to throw something at the screen. And I find myself feeling a very similar way when I'm reading through the Old Testament and looking at the Israelites. Because the Israelites, they're slaves, they're oppressed, the Pharaoh is killing their sons, and they're in just such hardship. But God, He uses Moses and Aaron to bring them out of that by using 12 different plagues, splitting the sea in half, and when He takes them out of Egypt, we also see that He's continuing to lead and provide and making a way to be near to His people. But as time goes on, the Israelites get angry and bitter and frustrated. They turn away from God and turn to other idols. They wonder if God is even really there, and they even think maybe we should just go back to Egypt. And it's easy to read that and think, what are you doing? What? And get so frustrated. It's like you're reading it and you're like, I'm not just angry, I'm disappointed. And then if you kind of take a moment to pause, as I have, I look down and I read and I see that it is such a mirror for what my life looks like so often. Because I forget God and I get really bitter and I can get really angry and I can wonder if He's even near. It's frustrating because it feels so real in the moment, and it's something that happens during hardship and even right now with everything going on with the virus. I think that along with this forgetfulness, we also have this fight, flight, and freeze reaction in our walk with God. Fight being that when something hard happens, we run towards Him, we lean close, we go into our prayer war rooms, and we just lean in really close. But sometimes we go into flight. We turn away, we walk away, we don't want to hear about anything having to do with God, and we get really frustrated in that sense. Or we find ourselves in a freeze situation. You know God's there, but is He really? You kind of question it, you know? And you're not actively running away, but you're also not actively leaning in. And I know that for myself, just being honest and transparent, with all of this virus stuff going on, I found myself in that freeze moment too. And sometimes it changes. Sometimes I feel like I'm going through all three of those in a day or in a week. So what do we do? Because between this forgetfulness, between these reactions, what do we do? And I think that such a big part of this is to remember God. We can remember God in our life, the way that He has moved mountains, the way that He has provided for us and made a way. And it can be really hard when we're in the middle of something to do that, but we can ask a friend or ask someone near and have that outside perspective to talk about those big mountains that have moved and that provision and that healing, and reflect and list those reasons. And because it's easier to kind of look at other people's situations too, I think that we also can remember the ways that God has moved in the lives of those around us, because we are able to get that interesting perspective where we see that transformation on the outside, and that testimony is so powerful too. Third, we can look at scriptures and look at the passages and look at the stories and see how what seemed so impossible and what seemed like would never, be on the other side, we see that provision, we see that, right in the Bible. And in Hebrews 11, this chapter is often noted as the Hall of Fame of Faith. And it's because In this chapter, we see numerous people of faith, what they're going through, how they held on to faith, how they held on to hope, and how God made a way. And it's powerful. These three things are so powerful because when we remember God in this way, it is a hope that is a firm foundation because it is based on what we know, what we have seen, and what we have experienced. And then moving forward, it empowers us when we remember these things. And I think that then we ought to remember what it says in Isaiah 43. It starts, "But now thus says the Lord, he who created you, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. And when you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." And then going down to verse 19, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." So friends, everything's really crazy right now. And prior to all this virus stuff happening, there's probably other hardships that you were going through and everything feels exacerbated and overwhelming. But let's remember God. Let's hold on to truth. Let's remember who he really is, not who our fear says he is, who our anger and bitterness says he is. Let's hold on and remember who God really is and remember that he is making the way, making a new way, and he is doing a new thing.